welcome back to my channel. I'm Leandra the TBR0, and as your resident Heartless booktuber and Valentine's Day just a couple weeks away, I thought I could provide you with 13 anti-Valentine's Day horror book recommendations. So whether you have just gone through a breakup or the last thing you want to read is a happily ever after, then I think I've got you covered with these very scary, sometimes gory reads that just might be up your alley. Starting off this list, the theme is farm settings. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure the farm settings aren't screaming sexy, and so I've got two book recommendations that are set on farms. The first one is Small Spaces by Catherine Arden. This one is a middle grade read. It's the only middle grade horror on the list, so moving forward you can expect one more YA and then the rest are adult, but this one features scarecrows that are scaring the living daylights out of kids. So if you are a fan of that, if you're like, yeah, kids, let's scare the shit out of them, then this might be the book for you. So I can definitely recommend it. It's more atmospheric than anything else, and it is really cozy actually. So for those who want horror but don't want to be scared and like having nightmares on Valentine's night, then this might be for you. If you're not really feeling the classic scarecrow, then maybe you want a random clown in the cornfield. This is Clown in the Cornfield by Adam Cesar. This is the YA book I mentioned. So yeah, if you're looking for just a great slasher that is screaming the Scream franchise, then I can also recommend this to you. But you know what? I understand that maybe the farm is sexy for some people. Maybe you met your ex on a farm. Well, in that case, let's actually avoid land altogether and go over to the ocean. My third recommendation is Into the Drowning Deep. This is an oceanic mermaid fantasy horror. I say fantasy, but in reality it's actually sci-fi horror because the main characters are scientists. They are researching mermaids as if it's a species, and let me tell you, this is no Little Mermaid reenactment. This is terrifying, and the mermaids do not mean any type of goodwill. This is the chunkiest horror on the list, so it's not really for the faint of heart, but if you're someone who loved Jurassic Park, which is also sci-fi thriller, sci-fi horror elements, then I feel like Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant would be perfect for you. If you've already read this, don't forget there is a prequel novella that you can also check out. I believe, I can't remember what it's called. I'll have the cover right here. Now you're telling me you met your ex at the theater watching the live action Little Mermaid? Oh my gosh, okay. Well, in that case, let's completely avoid any type of warm creatures that are breathing. How about zombies? Does that work? Now that I think about it, are mermaids warm-blooded? In any case, we're gonna stick to that theme, and these beings are cold-blooded because they are so dead. I've got two zombie book recommendations for you. The first one is The Z Word. This is definitely more camp horror. It has some light moments, and a lot of it has to do with the main character getting over her ex, which again is perfect for an anti-Valentine's Day horror book if that's something you're looking for in the month of February. With that said, if you want something a bit darker, maybe with a lot more social commentary, even though The Z Word definitely has that, a darker tone book would definitely be Manhunt by Gretchen Felker Martin. This one is very dystopian and it is gritty. It's very gory. There's also some sexual content in both of these books, so just be aware if that's something that you're not interested in. Okay, you're into the idea of dead things, but maybe not zombies. Well, how about hauntings? Because I have some recommendations for that too. I've got 3 books on this list that involve haunted places or haunted objects. The first one is Diavola by Jennifer Thorne. I adored this book. I gave it 5 stars reading it last summer, and I ate it up. It's set in an Italian villa, which switches up things a little bit when it comes to the haunted house trope, and it is very much centered around this toxic family dynamic. Our main character goes to this family reunion and she's expecting to just basically be berated and have these really passive-aggressive comments from all of her family members, and when she gets there, she's right. Meanwhile, there is a legend surrounding the property and the villagers won't even set foot on there, and of course, a family member opens a door that they are told not to open, and disastrous things ensue. The 2/3 of the way, there is this kind of odd change in the narrative, but it is a kind of trust the process type of book, so if you want to give this a shot, I think you'll enjoy it. If you're looking for something more fast-paced and just a quicker read in general, then I would instead recommend The Pale House Devil by Richard Kadrey. This one is far more humorous in a less dry fashion. It's a bit more blunt. It follows two characters who are kind of like killers for hire, but a job goes wrong in the city, so they are trying to lie low while also still making that money. And so they get hired to exterminate or exorcise the creature that is living in this estate, and the family is livid. They want to get back to obviously their family home because there's a lot of history surrounding it, but that history also hides some really dark secrets. It's a really quick read. It's a novella, so I can definitely recommend that to you if you just want something to read in one day or just in a few days without feeling like it's bogging you down. Oh my gosh, you're telling me you're one of those people who thinks a haunted house is super romantic? Okay, fine. How about a haunted cursed video camera? How to Make a Horror Movie and Survive by Craig DeLuey is exactly that. It follows this director who is obsessed with the horror genre, and he wants to bring back movies that are actually terrifying, that will scare you, that don't follow certain tropes, expected endings. And by doing that, he ends up finding this video camera that is cursed, and anytime he is filming someone, they end up dying in this horrible fashion. And for him, he's thinking, this will create the ultimate horror movie because it's true. And of course, so many people die. It's very gory, but if you're into that type of slasher gore, almost like 1970s, 80s, 90s feel of a book, then definitely read this. I also think the ending has a great payoff where it's worth it to see everything tie together, and I found it really satisfying. It's spoofy, it's very funny, and it's also just like a very chaotic book. I found it pretty original, and yeah, I probably will reread it at some point. Your ex gifted you a cursed camera last Christmas? Oh my gosh, okay. In that case, how about haunted people? Possession stories. I've got two of them on this list. I think that they should work. We've got The Goddess of Filth by V. Castro. This is another super short book. So if The Pale House Devil sounds interesting, but it's not really for you, but you were attracted by the length, then V. Castro is where it's at. This one is a possession story that follows a young group of Latino women, and they of course have a seance. One of them gets possessed by this goddess of filth, and you know, of course there's this question of what does it mean? Is it positive? Is it negative? Should we try to help our friend and exorcise this goddess from her being? And it's just, I think that the social commentary surrounding women, specifically Latina women, and where their place in society was really fascinating, and I cannot recommend it enough. Shout out to Lauren from Happy Haunts Library for recommending that book to me. If you're looking for something to really die down the mood, then instead consider the possession story that is The Night Guest. It's also a novella, and it was translated from its original Icelandic. I ate this book up. I know it's not for everyone because there is cat death in there, so that's a content warning to keep in mind, but the possession is by her own sister, and I mean, if anything's gonna kill the mood, it's gonna be that. I will say the first 10 books seem to have really reminded you of your ex multiple times, so let's actually talk about the elephant in the room and recommend 3 books that involve some really horrible exes that can just get them out of your system. Now, these 3 titles do highlight the importance of healthy romantic relationships, and they feature primarily a romantic relationship that is toxic for the main character. So keep in mind what type of mental or emotional situation you're in at the moment and whether you're ready to read those stories. The first one is A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. It is a reimagining of Dracula, and also, if you're interested in a classic, maybe read Carmilla, the prototype, the book that came before Dracula, but I digress. So when it comes to A Dowry of Blood, this follows one of the wives within the harem of Dracula and her attempts, multiple attempts, at trying to regain her identity, her agency, and eventually overthrow and get rid of the Dracula as a main character. I don't think he's ever mentioned as Dracula, but you know it's him, and it's a really interesting gothic story, especially kind of turning the original story on its head. The 12th book on my list is The September House by Carissa Orlando. Now, it definitely could have fit in our discussion surrounding haunted houses, but instead, I think that what's even more important is our main character's ability to reflect on her relationship with her husband and how it has changed her as a person, especially now that he is missing, and it seems like maybe the September House is to blame. That one also features discussions of alcoholism and physical and emotional abuse, so again, kind of be aware of that before you enter this book. And then finally, possibly the goriest book of them all, although Manhunt and How to Make a Horror Movie and Survive are up there as well. I'll be recommending The Dead Take the A Train by Richard Kadrey and Cassandra Khaw. So this one has so much going on, and just one of the very big main plots is surrounding a character who is trying to get away from her abusive ex. I found that to be a really interesting dynamic, especially as it influenced the characters as they were going through this fantasy horror New York City world. But like I said, this one's super gory. There's a lot of body horror in it, so just be aware of that. The cover is gorgeous though, and this is another one that does include discussions of substance abuse, so that's something to keep in mind. And those are my 13 recommendations for an anti-Valentine's Day reading experience. Please, in the comments, give me recommendations as well, because there are obviously so many great horror books out there, and while I'm giving you some, I would love some in return, because sharing is caring. If you end up getting to the end and you really don't have much to say, but you just enjoyed the experience, then maybe provide me with like the scared emoji. I think that that's probably appropriate, or maybe just anything else that's kind of creepy crawly, spiders, the haunted house emoji, you know, that type of thing. Thank you so much to my manor guests, whether you are sleuths, witnesses, suspects, or corpses. I really do appreciate your support, especially because we know the manor is haunted, speaking of. If you're looking for more horror recommendations, I did tier rank every horror book I read in 2024, and that will be linked here. Thank you all so much for getting to the end, and I hope you have a happy Valentine's Day, however you choose to celebrate it. Okay, bye!